Okay, we are back again because that's how we roll, bringing you a new episode every Wednesday. And I, of course, am talking about Happy Hour with Heather and Guest, which means that I'm here with Heather, who lends her name to the title of the show.
Yes.
And I'm that other dude, Andrew. As always, we are a team bringing you the reviews of some hot new jams. Sometimes they're old jams, but they're jams nonetheless.
Yes.
And today it was my turn to select the band that we would discuss, along with some of the other categories. So I picked the band Gnome because I think last year during one of my YouTube spelunking missions, I saw the cover of their debut album, which I believe is called Father of Time. And the album cover is the head of a lawn gnome smoking a giant pipe with sunglasses on. And I thought, okay, if the music is half as cool as this album cover, then I'm going to be a fan. Not to mention they're from Belgium, so I always like to expand our horizons in terms of finding bands from different countries that maybe we haven't listened to on the show before. So we're going to kick things off with Gnome, and then we're going to review an album by a punk group called Down with Rent, and then we're going to shine a light on the LA scene and talk about three bands, the Oil Barons, The Absurd, and Salems Bend. And then that will do it for episode 24. So kicking things off with Gnome, Father of Time, and you picked 4 tracks from this. If you're not familiar with how it works, the person who suggests the band usually allows the other person to select the tracks, unless there is a favorite, which I've done before. I've asked to include certain favorites from previous shows. But you picked Earthen Dweller, Bathed in Cheese, possibly the greatest title of a song I'd ever heard, Father of Time, and Restless Giant. So why don't you kick things off with Earthen Dweller?
Earthen Dweller, okay. Let's get weird. And I mean that in the best possible way. Be prepared for any and all expectations to be annihilated. These guys are good. And this song is a jam. I don't think I've ever heard Gnome before that I recall. When the song started, I was like, oh, this is nice music. And then it was like, dang, this rocks. This album has 279,000 views on YouTube. A lot of comments where I thought this was a meme, but this is really good. And it is really good.
I think due to the fact, and they just released a single that we'll talk about off their upcoming album. This one is called Wenceslas. And I think in the video, it's a really funny video of the three of them, and they're all wearing stocking caps as if they were garden gnomes, doing a choreographed dance. So I think based on the name and the look, it would be safe to assume perhaps they're being ironic, or that this is meant to be sort of a parody, until you hear the music. And then you realize that this is great. These guys are being serious. They can play.
Yeah. These guys are legit.
Yeah. This is not a joke. If you were going into Gnome thinking this will be like Weird Al Yankovic, or his take on the doom metal scene, then you would be mistaken. So go into this. I mean, obviously they have a sense of humor. and that will be apparent at times. But this is a serious band that makes great music. So Earth and Dweller, I just wrote Riff City, Population 1. No lyrics because none are needed. Slow build into a bluesy riff. And then, okay, so bear with me here because this is going to be a bit of a tangent. So do you know who Milton Berle was?
Yes.
Okay. So Milton Berle, for those of you who don't know, a very famous comedian, television actor, presenter, stand-up comic. He was known as Uncle Milty. He had his own show for a while, from the golden age of television. Anyway, the rumor about him was that he had an enormous penis. That was like the rumor that it was gargantuan. So at one, now I bet you're wondering, how is this going to tie in? I'll tell you. So at one point, somebody said, I want to measure against Milton Berle to see who's in fact more well endowed. So they went into like a bathroom and they came out and the guy said, I lost. And somebody asked Milton Berle, how he wanted numbers. And Milton said, I pulled out just enough to win. That was like that was like his famous line. So when I was listening to Earth and Dweller, it was almost as if they were showing off just enough to like tease you into thinking, I can really play my instruments well, and you're in for a treat on this album, but I'm giving you just enough to win. I'm not like showing you all the cards in my hand right away. So you may think, was that an excuse just so you could tell this Milton Berle story? Probably. It probably was. I probably didn't have to. But if you're a fan of the show, you know that it's virtually impossible for me not to go off on these long-winded tangents. So, but yeah, Earth and Dweller I thought was a great track to start off with. Instrumental, really just dynamite. And then that, of course, led into Bathed in Cheese.
Yeah, and this song is solid. It has a playful side, which I really like. A lot of time signature changes. There's riffs, and then they add to that, and then they add to it, and then it turns into another, and then there's more notes, and then they add more notes, and then it just builds upon more notes, and then they play faster and faster until the ending groove.
Yeah, we sort of we discussed the same subject matter, just going about it in different ways. I said, aside from the fact that it's possibly one of the coolest song titles I'd ever heard, it was a riff that kept building on itself like a transformer turning into something. That's, or if you remember the film Iron Man 2, right before Iron Man is about to fight against Mickey Rourke, and he takes the briefcase and puts it down, and the briefcase opens and he puts his hands in, and then his suit begins to sort of transform onto his body, and it just keeps, like, new elements of it keep breaking off and rising up and doing things. I felt similar with this song. It was like, okay, that's another layer that they've just added here, and another and another, and it kept building and building, and I was like, okay, they've got to be done. Nope, it's going to keep going. Yeah, just a dynamite stoner rock jam. And then and then Father of Time.
This song has lyrics. The only song on the album that does, and it's like, I feel good. Now, should I try it? I feel good.
I mean, yeah. if I can tell the Milton Berle story and make references to Transformers, you can certainly sing the chorus to Father of Time.
I wish I could sing it like they do. I honestly just want to play this song on repeat. I want to fly to Belgium. I want to see them play this live. I wonder if they sell the hats, because I think everyone should have a hat. And everyone in the crowd, has one, and we all sing together. And I have big dreams. I have big dreams.
Well, I'm ready to start looking up plane tickets to make this happen. So
yeah.
I said for Father of Time, it was almost like they took a commercial jingle and made it metal. Then it slides into a similar riff as Earth Indweller. Different, I mean, similar, not the same. Sort of like the walking, like there was a few episodes ago, I had a bunch of songs that all sort of had the same type of riff, like Dragonaut, Lord of this World, Heathens. This was of that similar sort of walking type riff, which I love. And then I just wrote down unique vocal delivery. And then the chorus was basically just the sentence, "I feel good," which I also loved. I don't remember the vocal delivery, so I won't try to replicate it. But I feel like you've done a good enough job for both of us.
Oh yeah, and it was spot on, don't you think? No.
I wish I could remember. I'm gonna play the aneurysm card as my out. That's my out. And then we had the last track on the album that we're going to talk about is Restless Giant.
It starts off it kind of has like a dueling guitars, which I really like. They are incredible musicians, and they write great songs. They don't take themselves too seriously, which I think is massively appealing. This music is really good, and it's also really fun to listen to.
Yeah, this was for Restless Giant. I said it opened with a melancholy, somber, really atmospheric music. There was no distortion. It seemed like more of a psychedelic song at first. And then the distortion and rest of the instruments came in, and there were some cool progressive illustrations. Illustrations might have been auto-corrected from something, but I don't remember what. So let's just go with cool progressive illustrations. Almost 11 minutes, no lyrics. You're basically on a sonic journey. And I'm one of the things that I enjoy is the fact that if you were to line up the 24 episodes we've done, I don't think you'd find very many bands that were exact replicas of each other. Most of the music that we've picked, the bands we've picked, are very distinct, which I look at as a badge of honor for this show. So, Gnome, certainly unique. And that was off their debut album, Father of Time. Their follow-up album, King, is going to be released on May 6th. So right around the corner. And we listened to 2 singles that will be on that album. The first one is Ambrosius. I believe that's how it's pronounced. And then Wenceslas, which I can only imagine is named after the king, which features in I want to call it a Christmas carol that I've heard before, Good King Wenceslas, or maybe that was the title of a movie that Jonathan Brandis was in. Regardless, I'm just showing off now. Regardless, Ambrosius and Wenceslas are singles that are going to be on King. What did you think of Ambrosius?
The first track from their upcoming record, and this song has lyrics also. I was happy to hear that. The video for the song is filmed in a greenhouse, and the sound on this, it seems bigger and heavier. Plenty of massive riffs. I just think that this new album is going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was interesting to note that you could certainly tell it was the same band, but that they're sort of expanding their horizons a little bit on this album. For Ambrosius, I wrote a few notes into a driving riff with some incredible shredding, time and tempo change to more of a traditional doom, with singing that kicks in halfway through. So yeah, I mean, really a great harbinger of sort of what to expect. You know, if the other tracks are as good, it's going to be a dynamite album. And then the last track we listened to was Wenceslas, which actually came out a couple of days ago.
Yeah, and this is the second single from their new album coming out, and you've got to see the video. It's a lyric video, and then we get dancing. It's freaking awesome. The bass is killer. More awesome riffs, incredible drumming. I've put this video on our YouTube playlist. You've got to see it. It's funny and inventive. This is some of the most original music I think I've heard. You can't go wrong with the Gnome theme. I love it, and I'm now a big fan of theirs. So thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, my pleasure. So members of Gnome, if you're watching, just know you've won over yet another fan. And keep making great music and killer videos. Yeah, for Wenceslas, I said much more complex and more progressive with great riffing and a bass breakdown, as you had mentioned. And you really do, if you haven't already checked out the playlist, hit pause, check out the playlist, listen to the music, watch the video, and then come back, because it's all worth it. So Gnome, Father of Time, and King, that'll be out on May 6th. Both are great albums that we would recommend you check out. And then segueing into category number 2, we're going to review an album from Down with Rent. I'm blanking on I thought I'd had the name of the album written down. Do you have the name of the album?
Lotus Eater.
Lotus Eater.
Lotus Eater came out in 2021. I think towards the end, like maybe October 2021. These guys are also out of Connecticut, which we talked about some Connecticut bands in our last episode too. And this band is also out of Connecticut. So Connecticut's got a little scene going, which is pretty cool. You know, the songs are short and fast and high energy. I added 3 of the songs to our playlist. I added Cop Fucker, Advertising is Mind Control, and Practice is Canceled. Practice is Canceled. That song rules. I feel that like their practices got canceled so many times that they had to write a song about it. So Practice is Canceled again. So yeah, that's funny, and that's kind of tongue-in-cheek too, which is kind of, you know, I think punk kind of can be tongue-in-cheek sometimes. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I said that my favorites were Pacemaker, and the song Pacemaker, and the song Sleep in Hell. Although my favorite track title was K-Pop Death Squad. And I felt like the band was sort of like, they reminded me of Black Flag when Des Cadena was their lead singer. Although there's an influence of kind of so Black Flag put out the first few Saint Vitus albums and then were really influenced by Saint Vitus in terms of more of a doom. You know, they were a punk band, but they really liked this doom band. So they sort of incorporated a slower tempo and more of a doomy kind of sound. So I got the sense that was also what was going on here. But But yeah, I mean, I liked the fact that there was some levity involved. Practices canceled, K-pop Death Squad. But yeah, I would recommend checking them out. Definitely, Lotus Eaters. It's a great cover too on the album.
Yeah, yeah.
And then our final cat. So I had wanted to discuss the oil barons. At some point, the drummer Jake and I went to school together. We were good friends in high school. So I've been meaning to suggest talking about them for a while. And then I know that their first album, How the West Was Won, they did an album release party at a venue that the Absurd was doing a residency at. So the Absurd was sort of cool enough to be like, yeah, if you want to do your release here, you can. And then also, I don't know who it is, but I think one or more of the members of the Absurd are also involved with Bent Knee Records, which is a label that has put out a ton of great bands. And they had sent me stuff to listen to. So then it was sort of like, well, I would be remiss not to talk about the Absurd if I talk about the Oil Barons. And then I kind of thought like, okay, well, if we're going to talk about those two bands, there's got to be other LA bands that I would want to mention who have been really cool to me in the past. Not to mention all three of these bands make great music. So that's really the first and most important thing. And then the fact that they've always been really cool. And I figured, why not sort of talk about all three of them? So that was the impetus behind this. And I apologize for being long-winded. But yeah, do you want to talk about any or all?
Yeah, I just think the LA music scene, it just seems like such a cool scene. Of course, I'm outside looking in, but to me, it just seems so iconic. So many great bands have come out of the LA scene, and it has so many venues. And I've never been to California, but it has like this magical quality to me. And maybe someday I'll be able to get there. But Salems Bend, I've been a big fan of theirs for a long time, and I love their album Supercluster, and I have it in my collection. They're awesome. They make great music. The Oil Barons, I wasn't very familiar with them, but I did check out their music, and I like it a lot. And any friend of yours is a friend of mine. The Absurd, Boots on the Ground from their album Building the Wall. That song is absolutely incredible. I love the way that he sings and like the inflections in his voice. They're just a really cool band. Lot of energy, that they have, and they're fun to watch. Like if you watch a video, or they're a lot of fun to watch. So these three bands in particular, I would say that was good putting them together like that, because they're kind of similar, kind of in a similar category, but each one of them is unique in their own way.
Yeah, so I think the Oil Barons are sort of modeled after the film There Will Be Blood. So like the first album, at least, How the West Was Won, I don't want to say it's a concept album, but I think most of the subjects deal with elements from the film. Striking oil, finding oil. They on Bandcamp are described as psychedelic Western doom rock, which I liked how all three of the bands had sort of a unique take on the music they made. My favorite song off How the West Was Won was Suicide Machine. But yeah, that sort of drew me in, the fact that it was the California desert scene has its own sort of stoner sound. It definitely has its own subgenre. You can tell who's sort of a doom stoner band from like the Pacific Northwest versus, California versus Louisiana. There's definitely something inherent to the location. So I think keeping these three bands together made sense. The Absurd, I listened to Ego Trauma off The Sun Still Rises. And yeah, there's something unique about the way they play and the vocal delivery and everything. They actually do a cover of Possum Kingdom by the Toadies. That's the latest release, which I listened to, but I want to sort of go back and listen to it with full attention, like I had it on in the background, because that was one of my jams from the early 90s when it came out. And their caption on Bandcamp is "Desert Grunge for Lovers." So again, I feel like that really encapsulates what they're about. And then, yeah, Salems Bend, I had not been as familiar. I sort of knew about them through social media. And they've always been really great about, like if I tag someone in a post, they're always cool about like commenting on that or liking that or just letting you know that they're not sitting on the sidelines, which I really appreciate. As someone who would try to gain traction in social media, it was always great to know that there were like-minded people out there. So yeah, I actually listened to Supercluster, and my favorite song was Heavenly Mana, which I thought was great. And on Bandcamp, they have the longest description. 3 dudes crawled into a garage turned studio and dug out some tracks from the nether realms of Sabbath, Priest, Toad, Zeppelin, and other 70s rockers, infusing those with a multitude of other musical entities, and they subsequently slithered out as Salems Bend. Plus, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they had either a tour or a t-shirt or something called Vampires, which was their tour van, with the vampire sort of theme to it, which I always thought was great. So yeah, I mean, if you're into sort of the grungy desert doom stoner sound, then all 3 of these bands fit that bill. They are definitely unique in their own way in terms of the lyrics and the vocal deliveries and the musicianship, but it's all great rock and roll music.
I agree.
So I'm glad we shone a light on LA and talked about Down with Rent, and I'm so glad you liked Gnome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so Heather and I have potentially planned out the next couple of months. So you can be certain that you will at least get 40 plus episodes. And then I have no doubt that we'll keep doing this because this is enjoyable. And I always learn a ton about new bands that I never would have found had you not brought them up. I'll go to I was just listening to Slow Green Thing yesterday. I even put a lyric in, not a lyric, I put a reference to them in the new book I'm writing, where one of the characters is listening to Slow Green Thing. And
that's incredible. That's, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just such a great feeling when you can talk about a band and someone takes the time to listen to the band that you're talking about or that you recommend, and someone actually takes the time to listen to them, and if they enjoy it and let you know that they enjoyed it, I just don't think there's a better feeling than that.
Well, it reminds me, it's not so applicable literally, but one of the most profound things from Almost Famous is when Philip Seymour Hoffman as Lester Bangs says the only real currency in this bankrupt world is what you share with someone when you're uncool. And the way I think about it is, it just replace the uncool with vulnerable. And, you know, like you and I are opening up ourselves to each other, but to everyone about what we think and how we feel about music, which is a really vulnerable spot. And the fact that you find sort of solace and companionship and friendship and understanding within that is what makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not to get too sentimental, but Heather and I hope that we're, at least I will put words in her mouth. We hope that we are doing that for all of you out there.
Yeah. That is our hope, you know. Yeah.
So there you go. So this was episode 24. Some dynamite bands. Next time it's Heather's turn for episode 25. I'm looking forward to it. And that'll be out next Wednesday. So, which I believe is the first one in May.
I believe so. Yeah.
So there we go. So. Heading into May with 25 episodes sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Heather. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.